So welcome back to another video here in Pennsylvania. Just out hiking a little section of the Appalachian Trail today, mainly for the purposes of making this video. But I want to answer some questions. One of the things I get asked the most is, what do you do about bears, snakes, and ticks when you're out hiking? It's one of the things that people ask you the most. And unfortunately, I think it's something that keeps a lot of people from going outside and enjoying the outdoors, enjoying a hike in the woods, is the fear of those things and some other things that people mention. I might do videos on at a later time. But so often, it's true, our fears keep us from trying new things or from doing the things we'd like to do. And so we don't do them because we're afraid of those things. But sometimes just learning or educating yourself about those things can really help. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to try to help you if you're somebody who's afraid of bears or snakes or things like ticks, getting those things out here in the woods. And you got to realize too that I'm here in Pennsylvania, here in the Northeast. And some of the things I say in this video, most of the things I say in this video will apply to this area. Okay? Depending on where you live, things are going to be a bit different. Like when I'm talking about bears, I'm talking about black bears. Black bears are a whole different story from, say, grizzly bears. Same with snakes. We have 3 varieties of venomous snakes here in Pennsylvania, just 2 in my area. And they tend to be non-aggressive, but depending on where you live, maybe the story may be different too. Even with the toxins that they have, there's different toxins that snakes have. Depending on where you are, they're worse. All right. So keep that in mind if you're watching this video. The rules may vary depending on where you're from. The story is the same, educate yourself. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in other videos too, but educating yourself about the dangers of the outdoors is far better than just fearing everything that's out here. Because I know some parents, instead of teaching their kids what poison ivy is, pointing it out, there's none here, but pointing it out along the trail, telling their kids, this is what poison ivy is, this is what it looks like, stay away from it. They just tell the kids to stay away from basically any plant. The kids get close to a tree with weeds growing around it, they say, oh, stay away, stay away. There could be poison ivy in there. And it's always the same story, oh, stay away from there, there could be poison ivy there. Why not teach your kids what poison ivy is? Teach them what it looks like, where it grows, things like that. Instead, they end up fearing every plant. Anywhere there's like an overgrown area, they're afraid of that area because there could be poison ivy. It's far better to teach them what it is so if they get to an overgrown area, they can stop. Actually, there's poison ivy. They can stop and look. Oh, there's some right there, but there's none over here. Education. Like if you're going to walk through this area, like right here is some poison ivy, whereas over here, this is not. So if you had to go retrieve something in the woods, you would know to go this way rather than to walk where the poison ivy is. So, kind of a little example there. And a lot of what I'm going to say comes from experience too. I have had numerous bear encounters. Well, it depends on your definition of numerous, but I've seen 6 black bears out in the wild, 5 since I've been filming. Some of them have been pretty close. Big ones. One was a mother and cubs. I think I shared a video of that maybe about a year ago. I might share some footage in this video too. Same with rattlesnakes and copperheads, the 2 venomous snakes in my area. I've encountered them a number of times. And of course, ticks. Everybody encounters ticks. So I do have my own experience as well. So let's talk bears first. Of course, once again, we're talking about the black bear here in the east and the northeast, not the grizzly bear or the brown bear. They're a whole different story. For the most part, black bears are non-aggressive. There's not a whole lot of deaths reported by black bears. There are some, but it's usually, to be honest, it's usually due to human error, shall we say. We'll talk about one case in here that happened over in New Jersey. But as far as Pennsylvania goes, I typed in bear deaths in Pennsylvania and came up with pretty much nothing. There's one case where the coroner had claimed that someone had died from a bear, but authorities kind of disagreed. Apparently a tree fell on someone when I guess they were cutting a tree down, and the tree landed on them, and they think that he died because of that. But the bear came along later and, what shall we say, fed on the guy after he was dead. So it was like a post-mortem eating. But as far as any black bear like attacking someone and killing someone here in Pennsylvania, I didn't come across any story about that. I did come across some stories of people being attacked, but to be honest, they broke some cardinal rules though. And like I said at the beginning, I have had my own bear encounters. Maybe I'll share one video with you right now. The one that, probably the biggest black bear was near, probably not the closest one, but this was the closest one to like out in the wild. The one I was closest to was actually behind a Family Dollar. It jumped out of a dumpster like 10 feet from me, but that wasn't really out in the wilds, and it was a kind of smaller one. But let me share the one picture with you. It was when we were hiking to, I was hiking to a place called the, oh no, I forget the name of the place. the Devil's Hole or something like that. I was up in the Poconos. Let me share that clip with you. Holy crap, there's a bear right there. Wow. And I also have encountered a mother and 2 cubs once on a hike. I was with someone else. Because that's one of the most, that's the iconic story here, you know, don't get between a mother and her cubs. Because we weren't between the mother and her cubs, but that is the most dangerous situation, one of the most dangerous situations you can encounter with a bear, any bears, even black bears. But I was okay in that situation. She was terrified of me and her cubs, and they took off running from us like crazy. So yeah, and there is, some of the stories I'm going to tell, I'm not going to give the names of the people involved, and I don't mean any disrespect when I tell these stories and talk about what these people potentially did wrong. Everybody has their own idea about those things. But there was a bear attack up in what's called Lycoming County some time ago, and the problem with when you read these news articles online or in the paper and stuff, they don't always tell you the whole story. They just kind of tell you, oh, some woman and her dog were attacked and critically injured, and it can make, if you're already afraid of hiking in the woods because of bears, I feel like it just makes it worse. But when you read beyond what the article says and what, let me just get into the story. So some woman, like I'm not gonna reveal names or anything, she was out hiking with her dog near her home, and they encountered a bear. Okay, what the articles don't mention though is that this bear had cubs. At least that's what the one article went a little more depth mentioned. Bear had cubs. Dog was not on a leash. So what do you think the dog did? The dog ran straight for the bear, the mama bear who had 2 cubs. And this was in December. They hadn't gone to den yet. So yeah, mama bear, 2 cubs. Dog goes running towards it. What do you think's going to happen? The bear got defensive, and it attacked the dog. How did the woman get hurt? Well, the woman decided to go help her dog. Well, the bear's already in defense mode. This dog runs towards her and her cubs. Now this human goes running towards her as well. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah, so the bear ended up attacking that lady as well. Both her and her dog suffered pretty critical injuries, but I believe they both survived that time. But yeah, you can feel bad for the lady and the dog, but you know, the bear was acting in self-defense. I'm not trying to take sides between the dog, the lady, or the bear, but the bear, you know, a mama and cubs, everybody knows that. You see a mama and cubs, you don't mess around, okay? You just let them go, she'll head off on her own. But when she feels attacked, especially defending her cubs, that's bad news, folks. That's why they often tell you, if you go hiking with your dog, to keep your dog on a leash. I know that's not always convenient, especially, I think they were hiking near their home, so, but that's why if your dog sees a bear, depending on what kind of dog you have, it's going to go run towards it, you know. And if the bear didn't have cubs, maybe it'd be a different story, but it did, and that ended badly. And I've come across other stories like that too, where where a dog actually is what provoked the bear to attack. So just keep that in mind, you know, if your dog runs after a bear, things could go bad. There's a few instances in other states where people were attacked by bears, but that usually involves food as well. Nowadays on the Appalachian Trail, in certain places they require you to have a bear canister, they call it, where your food's in like a can so the bear can't get it. Or if you're out hiking, you you put up a bear bag, you toss a rope up into a tree branch, and you work it out so your food is hanging. They call it bear bag. Your food is hanging from a tree out of the bear's reach. And in your tent, you shouldn't have any food in your tent overnight, even like stuff like toothpaste. Once a couple years back in 2020, I was hiking up in, not hiking, well I was hiking, but I was camping up in Potter County, Pennsylvania, Lyman Run State Park, I believe it was called, and there was a bear in the camp. That was quite the show. Maybe I'll show a clip of that out there. Sorry about that. Wow. Hello, bear. But of course, that bear created quite a ruckus. It wasn't there to hurt anybody. You know what it wanted? It wanted the dumpster. It wanted the food that was in the dumpster. But that night, you know, I wasn't worried. Like a few other campers mentioned that they heard the bear walk past their tent. But you know, he didn't like tear into their tent and start eating people and stuff. He was headed towards the dumpster or just looking around the campsite for food. So that's why I tell you, you know, be careful about leaving food sitting out. You know, I made sure all my food was in the Jeep when I went to bed. I didn't have any, like I said, I didn't have any toothpaste or shampoo, or why not I bring shampoo when I can't, but I had nothing like that. Even in my tent that the bear would smell like, you know, minty toothpaste, you know, let's see what's in here. Because I think I did remember reading an account where a bear did tear open someone's tent and drag the person out, but I think they were still after the food that was in there. So just, there's things you can do to prevent a bear from coming at you like that, just especially when you're camping. So you can hike and camp safely in black bear country, especially if you just follow certain rules. But occasionally there are examples where, anyway, odd examples. The problem with bears sometimes, if they get used to people, that can be dangerous sometimes. But let me tell you, there's a story. What's the name of this place? There's a fellow did die out in New Jersey a number of years ago. The Apshawa Preserve. I think it's kind of in northern New Jersey there. It's a preserve. Most of it's fenced in, which is kind of weird. But actually, they fence it in to keep the deer out so that the native plants can grow, because the deer tend to eat the native plants a lot. But I'm not sure if the whole preserve isn't fenced in, so I'm not sure if the bear was in the fenced in part or outside. But a fellow did die. Once again, there's rules that were broken in this case. He was with a group of people. They were warned by others that there was a slightly aggressive black bear. Not that the black bear had hurt anybody yet, but it had been following people on the trail. And they warned these people, hey, there's a black bear down there. I guess they didn't, I don't know, they didn't really listen or didn't think much of it. But they encountered it, and what did they do? They did probably the worst thing you can do, especially if you have a slightly aggressive bear. They decided to run. And running from a bear or any kind of predator is breaking one of the cardinal rules. When you run, you're engaging that chase instinct in them. They see their prey running, they want to chase it down. That's how it is even with dogs. I encounter dogs, you know, hiking and stuff. I just ignore them. If you look at them or run from them, things like that, it just encourages them. So I just ignore them. I just kind of keep going my way. Same thing with a bear. You know, when you run from a bear, it just clicks that instinct. And if it's already a slightly aggressive bear, man. So, like, so I'm not gonna tell the fellow's name. You can probably look it up yourself. But no one was with him. I think the group, like, when they started running, they kind of split up. That's how I got the story. But they didn't know what happened to him. They went looking for him. Eventually, authorities found him. The bear was kind of circling the area like they do. If they make a kill, they kind of circle their kill to try to prevent other predators from taking it. So, yeah. So in that case, you have a bear that probably shouldn't have been where it was. If it was in the fenced-in part, not sure. I guess they could have climbed the fence. But yeah, running from a bear is bad news. But that's not a very common example of something that happens, though. But these stories of bear attacks and bear kills, these are not the norm. These are kind of like the isolated examples where usually involving a situation where people did something wrong. Like I said, once again, I'm not defending the bear in the case of an attack or a killing, but reality is that most of the time people do something wrong that causes the bear or encourages the bear to attack. There are some rules here they've written down. So just some things to remember. For me, like when I see a bear, I'm actually just kind of excited. A bear, get it on film. I think it's awesome. I'm not afraid of them, but I respect them. If that makes sense. I know a bear is capable of killing me, so I don't provoke it. I respect it. I don't see a bear. I don't try to run to it. Like one viewer said, you pretty much, if you want to get, one of the few ways to actually get attacked by bears, so like to try and jump on it and ride a bareback or something. You have to sometimes really encourage the bear to attack you. Most of the time you see a bear or it sees you, it's gone, it's gonna run off. The bear does not want anything to do with you for the most part, okay? This is some rules. Don't run from it. Make yourself look big, you know? If I had this shirt, maybe I go like this, whoosh, make myself look bigger, you know? So it's kind of intimidated. Or you can make loud noises at it, so to scare it, to make yourself look bigger, make yourself look, you know what I'm saying? So it's more intimidating to the bear. If you need to get away, slowly back away. Don't run away from it, okay? And then avoid eye contact. Don't like stare at the bear, you know? Just like, if you notice, if you stare at a dog, dogs don't like to be stared at. They get kind of angry at you sometimes, so don't, like I mentioned that sometimes when I encounter dogs on the trail, I just ignore them. I don't run from them. I just keep walking my normal pace, and I don't even look at them, okay? So, but the idea, like I said, most of the time when you encounter a bear, it's going to see you first and head off. It's going to make that first choice of getting away from you. You probably might have to get away from it. Like I said, there are situations that might be different. Like I said, sometimes, unfortunately, bears get too used to people and can be an issue. But like I said, if you see one, usually when I see one, I'll just stop. I'll film it. I'm not going to like walk towards it or do anything to provoke it. I'm not going to try and feed it or anything like that. So just keep those things in mind. And I do want to quick bring up the issue of bear bells. Especially here in the Northeast. Occasionally I come across someone who has a bear bell on them. It's like a little bell that attaches to your backpack, and as you're walking it kind of, you know, makes the jingling noise. I don't really think you need one of those here in Pennsylvania. I've seen people hike with them, and watching the video is kind of annoying because the whole time they're hiking you hear the bell ding 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 ding. The idea of a bear bell is that it alerts the bears in the area that you're coming. Like I said, black bears here in Pennsylvania are not really aggressive. I don't really think you need to have a bear bell, to be honest. But I'm not going to tell you not to use one either. If it makes you feel better having a bear bell, then by all means use one. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of help, especially if you're someone who's afraid of bears. It's perfectly fine to go hiking in the woods of Pennsylvania, okay? Even to go camping in an area where there's bears, just as long as you practice some of the things I mentioned, you know, you'll be okay. Yes, you might say there's freak examples of sometimes, but the likelihood of that happening to you is very rare, okay? So it is safe to hike here in the woods of Pennsylvania, even with the black bears. So let's move on to snakes. Of course, we're talking specifically about venomous snakes. I know some people are afraid of snakes, no matter what the snake is, but most people that are afraid of snakes tend to be more afraid of the venomous ones, especially when it comes to hiking and camping. So here in Pennsylvania, there are 3 venomous snakes in Pennsylvania. There's 2 in my area, the timber rattler, timber rattlesnake, and the copperhead. Out in western Pennsylvania, they have something called the Massasauga, or the pygmy rattlesnake. So we just have those 2 here. Like I said, depending on where you live, you're going to have other types of snakes who are going to be more aggressive and have different types of toxins and stuff. So it might be different where you are. You need to educate yourself a little bit differently, maybe. So as with the bears, I typed in, or I looked up, you know, snake deaths in Pennsylvania. They didn't come up with a whole lot on that either. I think, I forgot the date. I didn't write the date down, but anyway, not too long ago, a fellow was killed by a rattlesnake bite at his camp area. I think he was by himself. I don't know if he was by himself or not, but a rattlesnake bit him. They did get him to the hospital. They did get anti-venom in his system, but he ended up dying of a heart attack, probably just from the stress of the whole situation and the venom acting in his body. But in that article, they mentioned that that was the first time in 14 years that someone had been killed by a reptile in Pennsylvania, and the first time in 25 years that someone had been killed by a rattlesnake bite in Pennsylvania. So it's not terribly common to die from a venomous snake bite here in Pennsylvania. People do get bit every year. They mentioned a couple of examples in that article, people getting bit by rattlesnakes and copperheads at some different locations. But it's important to keep your eyes open, though, in your surroundings, and know that, especially if you're in an area where they exist or live, just to keep your eyes open and understand their habits and where they might be. So the reality is, even if you do get bit by a timber rattler or a copperhead, you're probably not going to die from it as long as you get help soon enough. And these snakes in Pennsylvania, they have what's called a hemotoxin. There's hemotoxins and neurotoxins. Like I said, depending on where you live, it might be different with the snake. But hemotoxins, hemo means blood. They tend to attack your blood and your muscle. If you've ever seen like a rattlesnake bite, especially when it's kind of been untreated, it just swells up and the skin turns black and everything, and there might be some muscle death and stuff like that because it's attacking that kind of stuff. Whereas a neurotoxin, neuro meaning nerves, attacks the nervous system, and if left untreated, it can cause paralysis. You could just lose the ability. Your heart might stop, breathing stops because your diaphragm stops working. So neurotoxins tend to be a bit more dangerous sometimes because they can just like stop your breathing. Some snakes have both hemotoxins and neurotoxins, so you educate yourself about the snakes in your area. But one thing you can do, if you do get bit, we talk about some of my classes sometimes, environmental science class. What do you do if you get bit by a snake? Probably the most important thing you can do is stay calm. The faster your blood flows, the more that venom spreads throughout your whole body. So if you start freaking out, especially if you start running and just like, you're just gonna pump that blood, that venom faster throughout your body. So I told the story I told them the story. There was some fella over in Africa, I believe it was the black mamba. I think the snakes actually chase you over there in Africa. That's the only thing I talk about. I'll get to that later. Talk about the snakes here in Pennsylvania. They're usually non-aggressive, but anyway, over in Africa it's different. They have snakes that like chase you actually. I think it actually came out of a tree and went after him. But anyway, he got bit, and most people do not survive a black mamba bite, but he did, because to get back to his vehicle, he did not run. He stayed calm and he walked back to his vehicle. Yes, the venom was still spreading throughout his body, and he was able to drive himself to hospital. By the time he got to the hospital, he was in bad shape. I think he ended up in a coma anyway. But if he had ran back to his Jeep and started, getting all panicky, he probably would have died. But anyway, we could talk more about what to do if you get bit by a snake. That's probably for another video. But what I was trying to point out though is that here in Pennsylvania, our venomous snakes are not aggressive. A rattlesnake is not going to chase you down the trail. Well, maybe unless you make it really, really angry. But snakes are kind of like the bears. They don't really want anything to do with you. They would prefer not to have an encounter with you at all. In fact, snakes can't hear, they don't have ears, but they feel vibrations through the ground. So they can usually hear you walking feel you walking towards them. And if they're active, they will slither away. Snakes are cold-blooded, so sometimes you'll find them on the trail sunning themselves, and they'll be very lethargic. Let me share at least one video with you showing a rattlesnake kind of just chilling on the trail. That is a black rattlesnake. Awesome. There's his rattle. Wow, cool. He's just checking me out here. So there you can see in that video, that rattlesnake was just pretty chill. He had no interest in attacking me or anything. It was a cooler morning. But later in the day, they do get more active, but they still don't want anything to do with you. Just recently, I was hiking over at Rothrock State Forest with a friend, a fellow YouTuber and his friend, Day Hike Dave and his friend Bob, and Dave caught a glimpse of a copperhead, but it's quick slithered under a rock. It didn't want anything to do with us. It didn't sit on top of a rock and I'm gonna get these people. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't be careful around them. Let's walk around a little bit and show you just how to pay attention to things. So I am off trail here. If you're hiking on trail, it's a snake will be really visible on the trail. But when you're out in the bush like this, it can be a little bit more difficult. So it's best to keep your eyes open. The snakes, they do like areas like this where there's some downed wood or some rocky areas. I don't know if you see too many rocky areas in here. There's a lot of downed trees. But one thing, especially when you come up on a fallen log, up here's one. This is something I was taught early on. Before you just randomly step over this log, snakes love to they hide and rest underneath these logs. Before you just step over and put your foot on this side, just check. anybody down there, and then step over the log and keep going. So that's just one thing you can do when you're hiking. Just check the other side of the log first. You know, if you're in a grassy area where there's or a place with lots of ferns, like I to be honest, I don't like when I can't see where I'm putting my feet. Like high grass and ferns makes me a little nervous. So sometimes having a stick along or some other kind of a trekking pole and just sweeping the grass aside in front of you as you're going can help you see what's there. And also, sometimes if you're hiking along in a rocky area, you tap the rocks with that stick. Like I said, snakes feel the vibrations. That's how they know something's near. That can let them know that, hey, something's coming. They most likely will slither away. So if you're hiking in a rocky area, it's not really rocky here, but sometimes you can just tap the rocks. This stick's a little bit short, but if you have a longer stick, you know, or like I said, a trekking pole, just tap the rocks a little bit. You wouldn't have to do it in an area like this, but if you're like in a really rocky area, you know, the sound will travel well. There's probably no snakes in this area right here, but like if some of those rocky overlooks that you go to tend to have a lot of snakes. Because that can let the snakes know that, like I said, that you're coming. And I forgot to mention about the bears too. Sometimes people will, you know, holler in the woods, "Hey bear, hey bear," you know, as a warning to the bears that you're coming. Kind of the same thing with snakes a little bit. But I don't really do that a whole lot. I just kind of keep my eyes open. If I'm in a snaky area, I just pay attention to where, you know, where I'm putting my feet and what's up ahead of me. I'm not as careless as I might be on a trail, if that makes any sense. Just pay attention, right? And if you're in an area that's known to be very snaky, to have like rattlesnakes around, maybe the best thing for you would be to just stay on trail. Like I'm okay with going off trail. Like I said, I watch where I'm going and stuff, but if you're not okay with that, then just stay on trail. That might be the best thing for you in that case. So as with the bears, I don't fear venomous snakes. I respect them though. If I see one there, like there's like these little ringneck snakes they're called. They're really small things. I love to pick those up and have them slither around my fingers and stuff, but they're non-venomous. They're absolutely harmless. However, if I see a rattlesnake on the trail, I'm not going to run over to it and try and pick it up and then complain how horrible a rattlesnake is because it bit me, okay? Like I said, the ones in Pennsylvania here are generally non-aggressive unless they're provoked. People that usually do get bit is because they're trying to pick it up or move it off the trail or doing something else that's just not too smart. In fact, your rattlesnakes get their name because they rattle. That's their way of telling you that, hey, whoa, you're getting a little too close, especially if you didn't see them. So it's kind of nice of them to let you know that, hey, you're getting close. You know, in fact, they don't want to bite you, but like I said, if you provoke them or things like that, then they can get a little bit more aggressive. So when I see one, I'll get excited. I'll take photos and videos of it, but I keep my, you know, I respect it. I keep my distance. I don't try to touch it or do anything else stupid, shall we say. Just kind of give it space and just respect it from a distance, appreciate it from a distance. Now if your problem is that you're just afraid of snakes in general, well, I can't really help you on that. But if it's just a venomous snake, once again, just, you know, do your research beforehand. If you're going to do a certain hike, you know, there's a lot of information online these days where people tell you if they've seen snakes in the area and stuff. So just do your research, educate yourself. It's like in the future I may make a video on what to do if you do get bit, but not for this video. But just educate yourself on that too. And just like I said, it's not so much about fearing the outdoors as it is about respecting your surroundings and respecting the animals that live there and understanding them, learning to identify them as well from a distance. You can do that with venomous versus non-venomous snakes. Maybe it's a video I should make too, how to tell the difference. Even if you don't know what kind it is, it's pretty easy, at least here in Pennsylvania, because we have pit vipers. That's what they're called here in PA. You can even from a distance, you can kind of tell it's the venomous variety. All right, but I think that'll be it for snakes. Let's move on to ticks. So if you spend any amount of time outdoors, even if it's not hiking, even if it's just out in your yard, you probably had a tick on you at one point or the other. So, but everybody talks about ticks these days, especially because of Lyme disease. But a couple of years ago, I made a whole video about ticks and Lyme disease and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna go into all that today. I might cover that again in the future at some point. But yeah, I think once again, it's about educating yourself about ticks. I mean, there's things you can do to prevent them from getting on you to begin with. You know, using bug spray, maybe wearing long pants when you're on a hike. I know not everybody likes to do that, but it does add a degree of protection, things like that. But I think one of the most important things to consider when dealing with ticks is what to do after the hike. It's like I said, I think the most important thing sometimes is what you do after the hike. Like I said, there are some things you can do. Everybody has their own little thing they try to do to prevent getting ticks on them, but if you're gonna be out in the woods like this, sometimes it's difficult for it to not happen. I usually can feel them on me, when I get home, or even on the way home, sometimes I can feel them. Guys tend to have a lot more hair than women do, so the hair, when that tick is crawling across your skin, it tickles your hair, and like, what is that? And I can find it and pull it off. They usually don't latch onto you right away. They're looking for a nice spot to latch on, and even then, they don't start usually burrow. They like to burrow their head into your skin to get to your blood supply. Usually, it takes about 24 hours to actually do that. So that gives you time. Like if you're really worried about ticks, when you get home, I actually, like, 'cause I was just hiking recently with Dave, Day Hike Dave and his friend Bob. Bob was mentioning what he does. As soon as he gets home, he takes his clothes off and puts them in the dryer, even though they're not wet, and has them, puts the high heat on for, I forget how many minutes he said he does it, because the ticks don't like high heat, it kills them. And he takes a hot shower too, but just taking a shower in general, if the ticks are crawling on you at some point, or in your hair, just taking a shower can wash them off. Or even if you don't put your clothes in the dryer, just putting on a change of clothes in case there's a tick on your clothes somewhere, not on your skin yet. Or if you just check yourself too. Certain places, ticks tend to like your pits and bits. One person said it, but check your areas, to feel if there's one there, or have someone help you a little bit. So I think sometimes it's what comes after the hike. Ticks are one of those things that, if you spend any time outdoors, you're probably going to get one. But don't freak out. Like I said, you're not going to get Lyme disease from a tick just crawling on you. Even if they just initially latch onto you, you're not going to get Lyme disease from that. It's not until they actually burrow. They don't really burrow until they embed their head into your skin and start taking part of your blood supply. That's when the blood and then their saliva actually gets in, and that's where the Lyme disease bacteria is. So, as soon as you get home, if you just deal with that, check yourself, change your clothes, take a shower, do that kind of stuff, you're gonna be okay. Like I said, even if you find one just initially latched on, if you find one embedded in your skin that you missed somehow, it's still not necessarily the end of the world. Okay, they theorize that there's only a certain percentage of ticks. When we say ticks, we're talking about the deer tick too. 90% of the ticks that I have found on me are the wood tick, or sometimes it's called the dog tick. Those don't carry Lyme disease. I know some people say they do, but they don't. Okay, it's the deer ticks that carry Lyme disease. All right, so I have had some embedded in my skin that I've had to get rid of, pull out, and I've not gotten Lyme disease from those. Thankfully, I'm not boasting about that. It is a concern of mine, but then I pay attention, because there's the symptoms of Lyme disease. You pay attention. Do you get that bullseye rash? Do you get a fever or cold symptoms afterwards? If that's the case, then go see a doctor, okay? But so, yeah, just follow that advice. So once again, I don't fear ticks. I respect them, though. I check myself. If there's one on me, of course, I get it off right away. But like I said, 90% of them, easily 90% have been the wood ticks. It's not the deer ticks. I have found some deer ticks on me already. So once again, I don't fear them, but I do respect them. And I respect the fact that they can give me a disease that can cause a lot of harm to my body. So like I said, if you get one that's been on you for a while, it's embedded in you, then just keep an eye on your condition. Look for the signs, folks. All right, but don't keep that from having you go out and enjoy the outdoors. So hopefully this video helps you a little bit. You can listen to what other people say too. You don't have to just take my advice for it. Some of this is just my opinion too. But I love the outdoors, and it kind of hurts me a little bit when I come across people who refrain from hiking all that stuff because of the fears they have. I'm not going to say those fears are irrational. A snake bite can cause you harm. It can kill you, especially depending on where you're from, what kind of snakes they have. Bears can be dangerous if provoked, and ticks can carry a deadly disease. But if you just educate yourself and do some of the things I mentioned in this video, you should be fine. Learn to, instead of just fearing everything, learn to kind of educate yourself a bit, and then, be able to enjoy the outdoors. But once again, I want to stress, I'm not encouraging you to be, negligent or irresponsible or even arrogant about some of these dangers we talked about. All these things we talked about can be dangerous, even deadly to you. Like I said, it's not always about fearing things as it is about understanding and respecting them. But anyway, thanks for coming along, folks, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one, wherever that may be.